Listen, don't talk.
I'm listening.
And I'm not talking, that's what it's about. But yeah, look, I think it's one of those things where you often say to young salespeople or people new into the business, really be prepared to understand that requirement rather than just, trying to predict what someone wants. Ask the right questions to understand how you can help them.
So joining me on the line today, I've got Mark Bond from Facey Property. So welcome to the call, Mark.
Good afternoon.
Maybe just tell us a bit about you, what you do, and a bit of background.
Okay, well, Facey Property, based here in Dandenong. We've been, I suppose, a business around since 1987, focusing on commercial and industrial properties. And, we're a team of about 35 these days. And we've also got an owners corporation business, which again focuses on commercial properties.
Yeah.
A very large portfolio of property management, which it's great, but in recent weeks it's provided a bit of extra work.
I was going to say, you guys must be the busiest people on the planet right now with commercial real estate.
Yeah, we certainly have been. Look, it's been probably, in some ways, it's been fantastic for the property managers to have to work in a little bit of an uncomfortable space, but
yeah,
it's very much negotiation rather than just collecting rent and outgoings and dealing with maintenance. It's about relationships, and most of our tenants have been fantastic.
Yeah. What about the landlords? They wouldn't be so happy.
Yeah, but again, most of them have been really good at understanding that it's no one's particular fault.
Yeah.
And really working through. Look, I started in 1993. Obviously, the economy then wasn't fantastic.
Yeah.
And probably the similarities that we find with that time are, people are just being a bit anxious about the future.
Yep.
So length of lease and incentives have come back into, negotiations. But obviously what we didn't have in the early 90s was all this government support.
Right.
And that's been, again, I think really a great carrot to enable us to have negotiations for, what rent looks like for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And in some cases, 6 months, yeah.
Great. So, Mark, tell me what opportunities you see in the marketplace right now.
Well, I think for most people, good property still remains good property. So, we haven't seen a dramatic change in pricing.
Right.
What we have probably seen, as I just touched on, a few more incentives out there for tenants. So, if you're a business owner looking at moving, I think it's a really good time to get into space and get a fairly strong incentive to motivate you to do that. So when I talk about incentives, I'm talking about a little bit of rent-free and maybe a contribution towards your fit-out. So depending upon the size of your business, they're out there to the tune of anywhere between 5 and 15%.
Right. So tell me a bit about, obviously people have been working from home for quite a while now, and a lot of people are questioning the validity of an office space. What's your view?
Well, we probably would have said mid-April, it's difficult to understand how people are going to re-engage back into offices. But by the last week of April and all through May, we've really found a lot of our suburban offices have been pretty popular.
Yeah.
So I guess they've been popular with people that were travelling, half an hour to an hour into the city from areas, out in your Berwick, your Clyde, these type of regions. And now they're looking at opportunities in Dandenong and in Narre Warren. They are being probably focused on no more than 2 levels and areas that are probably easy to access without sharing too much space with everyone. So look, that's been interesting, but it's the small end of the market that's been really active in the office space.
Right. So do you see this as a permanent shift? So people are going to start moving away from the CBD?
Look, I would say that businesses have every reason now to consider, places like Caribbean Gardens, Dandenong, Box Hill, Frankston, as a place to put their headquarters, so that they're closer to where people are living. Because people don't want to jump on the train for, again, 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
I just think there'll be a shift. It won't be monumental, but it's good for probably a bit of decentralisation.
Yeah, I think like before we started this call, you were talking about this whole getting used to using Zoom as a sort of not a replacement for face-to-face meetings, but an augmentation, so an extension. So you've got more ways of communicating with people. So just curious as to how that's going to affect property and property prices.
Yeah, look, I think we're talking to our screens more than we ever have. And I think that the flexibility that people have been talking about for the last 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden, it's a reality. And people still want a space. Like, we're as I touched on before, we're a business of 35. 10 of our staff wanted to come back in to engage in the office environment because they found working from home a bit too challenging. And what we've found is with that re-engagement, they've been, able to work at an optimal level. And the people that are working from home, in general, are dropping in from time to time. But, over the next 2 years, I think the old phrase that we used to talk about, can we ever be paperless? It's getting closer because, you don't really want to have to come into the office to print up a 60-page contract. If you can send that out through Adobe Sign or DocuSign or one of these forums, well, great, let's try to do it.
Fantastic. So tell me, Mark, what personal lessons have you taken out of this climate?
Be patient is probably the biggest one. Look, initially when it occurred in obviously late March, the anxiety or the panic that kind of dominated our environment for the next week or two was probably really challenging for a lot of my staff. And I would say just that complete never having experienced a massive hiccup to the market. Obviously, back in the early 90s, people were still very scarred from pyramid and all of the stock market issues that it had in the late 80s. And a lot of the people that we employ, either weren't around or were, babes in arms back then. So it's probably just explaining to people that the relationship with your landlord and your tenant isn't one of opposition. It's one where they jointly benefit. So in the main, that's well understood, but it's been tested. But I've been really proud of our property management team. They've been put through a hell of a test and they've come out magnificently.
Fantastic. So tell me the best piece of business advice you've ever received.
Listen, don't talk.
I'm listening.
And I'm not talking, that's what it's about. But yeah, look, I think it's one of those things where you often say to young salespeople or people new into the business, really be prepared to understand that requirement rather than just, trying to predict what someone wants. Ask the right questions to understand how you can help them. Because, look, at the end of the day, real estate's just about matching needs. And as much as you can, if you can do that well, you'll be successful.
Fantastic. So tell me, favourite book?
My favourite book, we did touch on that a little bit earlier. I've got 3 children and they all like me reading Harry Potter to them. So I'm probably reading more of that than I am anything else. But look, when I saw that as a possible question, one that we hand around here a bit, and I think it might have been from the 1980s, is plain English. Because it doesn't matter whether you're writing an email or trying to respond to some questions by a solicitor. If you can get to the point in as fewer words as you need to and keep it simple, plain English is a great reference for a lot of our team. It's got to be understood.
Yeah, we really do live in a world of over communication right now, and I think there's a lot of junk that sort of gets posted on the internet and spam email and telephone calls. And I think you're right. I think people need to learn to be very succinct in their communication. And you sort of said it nicely, but Stephen Covey, I remember his quote of "seek first to understand and then be understood." You know,
Yeah.
and this whole notion of listening, you know, it's a big thing for people, and obviously with sales especially, people tend to talk a lot when they're supposed to be listening and asking questions. So very good. So tell me, the number one piece of advice you'd give to a business owner right now?
Well, understand your need before you start looking, because there's opportunity everywhere, whether you're an investor or you're looking at, you know, reducing your footprint or increasing your footprint.
Yeah.
Unless you've sat down and really forecast what your business might do in the next 2 to 3 years, you can spend a lot of time just looking. So we've got a lot of clients at the moment that have been trying to find investments at a certain level, and that's fairly tightly held stock, but patience will be the key there for them. We certainly, you know, see a lot of change in the market between now and, you know, probably March of next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just people deciding, do I need this asset, or is this money better in my business, and allowing someone else to, you know, to partner with them, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. I think the best thing about what's happened right now is change, and change creates opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's sort of what you're alluding to there is that, you know, the opportunity will show up for those people that are ready and looking, not for the people who are too busy with their head in the sand. And it can be both sides of the equation. So the tenant, landlord, any one of those people, the shifting sands is where they're sort of going to see their sort of fortune.
Yeah, look, I had a client on the phone the other day, and he was talking about whether or not, you know, he wanted to sell it, but if he sold it, he'd like to sell it sooner rather than later because of what's going on in the stock market and et cetera, et cetera. And I just said, look, you just have to resolve whether you wish to sell it.
Yeah.
There'll be opportunity once it's sold, and you certainly don't need to be, you know, jumping into the next thing, you know, the day after settlement.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right, Mark, very conscious of time. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting to hear what's going on the other side of the commercial real estate sort of market, because we hear it from the business owner side so often. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, and look, I'd love to talk to you or any of your clients if they need just that little bit of advice.
Yeah.
You know, we've been around for a number of years, and, you know, we've got some, I suppose, experience that will count and help them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks again, Mark.
No worries.